A monkey shattered the patriarch's urn, only to find the patriarch, worshipped for years, was a handgun. Immediately after, an old monkey nearing its end told a young monkey a secret. Thousands of years ago, the rulers of the world were not monkeys, but the humans they enslaved. In the future, due to a dramatic surge in the human population, the Earth was completely overwhelmed. Finding a new habitable planet had become urgent. For this purpose, America built a space station in outer space. They were continuously conducting genetic modification on animals, hoping to use them as cannon fodder to explore new planets for humanity. Because apes are highly intelligent and have strong memories, they were the perfect choice as subjects for modification. Soon, the space agency selected a few apes from the forest and brought them to the station. After genetic modification, they began teaching the apes to pilot spacecraft. An astronaut was also assigned an ape partner. This ape, named Pericles, was the cleverest of them all. The astronaut trained Pericles to fly the ship every day. One day, the space station's signals suddenly showed an anomaly. Seeing this, the astronaut hurried to check on the situation. After discovering it was an electromagnetic storm, the director ordered his ape to investigate first. If there was no danger, the astronaut would then complete the mission. Subsequently, the astronaut sent Pericles, clad in a spacesuit, to the ship. Then, like a concerned father, he urged it to be safe. After all preparations were complete, Pericles started the ship and entered the eye of the storm. At first, everything appeared normal, but they soon discovered Pericles' ship had gone off course. Moreover, the mothership was unable to lock onto his craft. A moment later, Pericles' ship completely lost its connection to the mothership. The astronaut was extremely anxious. He had long considered Pericles a member of his family. Immediately after, while no one was looking, he piloted his own ship away from the mothership, intending to go to the storm's center to bring Pericles back. Just as he departed, the mothership received a distress call from an unknown source. No one knew who had sent it. Meanwhile, the astronaut had entered the storm and located Pericles' ship. Suddenly, an energy ball hurtled toward him. The immense force sent his ship flying. The ship was then pulled into a temporal vortex. The astronaut looked at the ship's internal display, only to see the date rapidly advancing. In the blink of an eye, thousands of years passed. The astronaut was completely stunned by this. But he quickly composed himself, preparing to pilot the ship back to the space station. Unexpectedly, the ship's systems failed. It plummeted uncontrollably toward an unknown planet. Then, the ship, sparking and flashing, tumbled through a forest, finally stopping as it plunged into a lake. Fortunately, the astronaut inside was unharmed. He quickly swam out of the water. On shore, he cautiously scanned his surroundings. He was shocked by what he saw. The place was full of extraordinary things. Lush green forests, crystal clear water, and a rich oxygen atmosphere. This place was absolutely perfect for human habitation. If he hadn't arrived on this planet by accident, he'd never have known such a paradise existed in the universe. At that very moment, an old man and a young girl passed by. The astronaut quickly called out to them. He was just about to ask about the situation, but the two of them immediately turned and fled. They were followed by more people, running in a panic. Confused, the astronaut joined the group and ran. He guessed there must be some terrifying beast behind them. But 2 legs are no match for 4. The beasts behind them quickly caught up. It turned out, the so-called beasts were a group of apes in armor. These apes were all well-trained and agile. They swiftly captured the fleeing humans one by one. The astronaut was so shocked his jaw dropped. He couldn't understand how the apes had become so formidable. Before long, most of the humans had been caught. The few who made it out of the forest thought they had escaped, but they never expected that a large ape army had been waiting in the distance. The entire forest was the apes' hunting ground. No matter where they ran, they would eventually be captured. Soon, the astronaut was knocked down by an ape's flying kick. Stunned, the astronaut stared up at the ape before him. But in the ape's eyes, humans were not worthy of meeting their gaze. Seeing their leader grinding his teeth in anger, a perceptive underling quickly kicked the astronaut. Then, the astronaut, like the others, was loaded onto a prisoner cart. His entire worldview was completely overturned in that moment. The ones pulling the cart were actually all humans. He couldn't understand why humans were being used like livestock, but greater shocks were yet to come. The cart soon arrived in the ape city. On the streets were not only apes drinking and listening to music, but also getting their hair styled. Even performing monkey shows had been replaced with performing human shows. This was, more or less, an advanced civilized society. The astronaut turned to ask the other prisoners if anyone knew where this was. The others all said it was their first time here as well. After all, they had all just been captured. Along the way, the astronaut saw that these apes did not treat humans as people. Even the children on the street threw stones at them. Perhaps on this planet, the status of humans was extremely low. Sure enough, the prisoner cart stopped before a slave trader. Here, humans were presented like livestock for his selection. The most absurd part was, the trader kept complaining this batch of humans was low quality. He haggled relentlessly with the soldiers. After settling the price, he still acted as if he'd gotten a bad deal. He then ordered his men to drive all the humans off the cart, and then sorted them based on their condition. Just then, General Thade arrived with his niece. He reminded the trader to keep a close eye on the astronaut. This human was very different. The two continued their conversation. Nearby, the astronaut pricked up his ears, listening to them talk. It turned out, the reason the ape army was capturing humans on such a massive scale was because humans frequently stole vegetables from their fields. The trader's idea was to execute the ringleaders on the spot, to serve as a warning to the others. But Thade did not agree. He felt it was better for humans to remain their slaves. This way, humans would know their lowly place. With that said, Thade prepared to leave. To curry favor with him, the trader quickly offered a small human girl to his niece to play with. He even brought out his most prized possession. After finally seeing off the important figure, Thade, the trader and his underlings went to the human holding cell. They pulled out the captured humans one by one. Then, they branded each human with the mark of a slave. The piercing screams reached the ears of an ape named Ari. She hurried out and knocked the branding iron from the trader's hand, declaring that apes should grant humans their freedom. In fact, she was the one who had stopped the children from throwing stones. Ari often spoke in defense of humans. If not for her high-ranking official father, the trader would have dragged her out for a beating. At the same time, the astronaut had secretly picked up the branding iron from the floor. As Ari neared the cell, the astronaut immediately seized her. For a moment, none of the apes dared to move. The astronaut had already seen that Ari was a compassionate soul. He leaned close to her ear and begged for her help. Hearing this, Ari's heart softened. She bought both him and the girl from the trader. After paying, she took them home. In truth, Ari's house had many human servants, all bought by her father. These servants had been trained by the butler to be perfectly obedient. When the butler saw the defective goods Ari brought home, he was utterly dismayed. An important guest was expected today, and these filthy humans would offend the guest's eyes. So the butler hid the astronaut and the girl in the back kitchen. A distinguished astronaut was now a kitchen hand, stoking fires. The astronaut didn't want to stay in this place a second longer. When the kitchen staff were busy serving dishes, the astronaut grabbed a knife and prepared to escape. But he was caught before he even left the kitchen door. He thought the apes were going to beat him. Fortunately, it was only because they were short-staffed today. An ape had come to find someone to help in the front hall. At that moment, General Thade arrived at Ari's home as a guest. He had long wanted to propose to Ari. After all, who wouldn't want a high-ranking official as a father-in-law? Unfortunately, Thade's approach to handling humans was too radical. Ari had nothing in common with him. The apes at the dinner table then started talking about humans. When the rapid growth of the human population was mentioned, an official's wife suggested a solution. Can the government sterilize them? The price would be high. Anyone who heard that would call her a living devil. However, Ari immediately voiced her opposition. She maintained that humans and apes could coexist peacefully. She became more agitated as she spoke, even saying there was no difference between apes and humans. Hearing Ari compare them to the lowly humans, Thade was instantly consumed with rage. Just then, the unlucky astronaut came over to serve a dish. Thade immediately used him as a punching bag to vent his anger. This display was utterly repulsive to Ari. Then, under everyone's gaze, she left the table in a fury. Seeing this, Thade quickly followed her. He became aggressive, trying to force his affections on her. But Ari was aware of his wolfish ambitions. She went right up and spat in Thade's face. Meanwhile, all the servants who had finished their work were locked in the servants' quarters. The astronaut then took out the small knife he had hidden during dinner. After picking the lock, he escaped with several other servants. Remembering the many humans still in the cells, and since he was picking locks anyway, he snuck into the prison and picked open all the locks. He thought the apes would be asleep for the night, but he didn't expect them to party even harder as the night went on. When they saw a human burst into the room, they all screamed in terror. Instantly, the night patrol soldiers heard the cries and came to investigate. All the humans quickly scattered and hid. Unexpectedly, they ran into Ari again during their escape. But Ari didn't blame them at all for running away. Instead, she thoughtfully led the way for them. As they ran into a cave, Thade's subordinate led an army in pursuit. The old man knew that their chance of escaping as a large group was slim. To buy time for the others to escape, he grabbed a torch, ready to fight the subordinate one-on-one. But the ape was a head and a half taller than him. After a brief struggle, he was captured on the spot. At that moment, Thade suddenly appeared from behind and stabbed the old man. For these trouble-making humans, Thade ordered that all of them be captured and executed on the spot. His subordinate then asked him how to deal with Ari, who conspired with the humans. However, Thade insisted the humans must have coerced her. All apes were forbidden from harming Ari. Meanwhile, the astronaut had already escaped with everyone else. They entered the forest and came to the lake. The astronaut explained to the others how he got here. He then said he still didn't understand how monkeys could talk. Hearing this, Ari's bodyguard instantly flew into a rage. He lunged at the astronaut with crushing force, telling him not to confuse apes with low-intelligence monkeys. At this point, the astronaut didn't want to argue about it. He turned and jumped into the lake. Seeing this, Ari's eyes nearly popped out in fear. After all, water was what apes feared most. But humans can swim. The astronaut dove to the bottom of the lake and retrieved a storage bag. Inside were his communicator and his weapon. To find the location of the mothership, he quickly activated the locator to try and make contact. Unexpectedly, the communicator actually responded. It showed that the mothership was also on this planet. The astronaut was overjoyed. He desperately wanted to return to his own normal world. Afterward, he followed the locator signal to find the mothership, but they were suddenly intercepted on the way. The slave trader had discovered the escapees. He and his men captured one of the young boys. Now armed, the astronaut was filled with confidence. He fired a shot at the trader. The ape had never seen such a strange device. He was so terrified he fell to his knees, begging for mercy. But while his mouth begged, his hands were not still. Seeing this, the astronaut fired another warning shot to make him realize the situation. Then, needing to keep moving, they handcuffed the traitor. Because if they let him go, a petty man like him would surely turn around and report them. At the same time, Thade went to see Ari's father. He claimed the situation was urgent and Ari had been abducted by humans. He insisted power must be granted to him now. Only then could he lead the army to rescue Ari. Her father knew Thade was no good, but for Ari's sake, he had no choice but to agree. Having achieved his goal, Thade was thrilled. He was eager to lead his troops to kill the astronaut immediately. Just then, a soldier came to report something important. It turned out Thade's father was old and ailing, and had summoned him home to tell him something important. Soon, Thade arrived at his father's bedside. He told Thade to shatter the vase over there. After Thade did so, he found an unfamiliar object inside. His father then revealed a shocking secret. In fact, a millennium ago, it was humans who had always ruled the world. Apes were merely playthings, kept in cages for people to watch. This thing is more powerful than 1,000 spears. Afterward, his father told Thade he must capture all the humans at once. If they enter the forbidden land of Kalima, the consequences will be unimaginable. You must remember to stop the humans from entering the forbidden zone. After saying this, the old ape passed away. Meanwhile, the astronaut had led the group to a strange place. There was no vegetation here. As far as the eye could see, there was only desert and wasteland. He asked what the hanging objects were. Ari told him they were signs, forbidding entry. Any further and they would be in the forbidden zone. But the locator showed the mothership was just ahead. The astronaut declared he was determined to enter the forbidden zone. However, that was easier said than done. The forbidden zone was always heavily guarded by the ape army. If they were to just walk in openly, it would be no different than committing suicide. But with a casual glance, the astronaut noticed a river not far away. Since apes feared water and humans did not, the next step became much simpler. Just then, Thade's communications officer arrived. He told the soldiers to guard the forbidden zone well. Anyone who crossed the line was to be killed on sight. But the soldiers paid him no mind. After all, no one had come here for many years. After the officer left, they even started playing cards. That night, the astronaut and his group began their plan. They quietly snuck into the army stables and rode away on the apes' horses. Then, the astronaut fired a signal flare into the sky. He believed that if the mothership saw it, it would come to their aid. But the shot obviously alerted the soldiers that their base was being raided. Soon, all the soldiers noticed the disturbance. Fortunately, this was all part of the astronaut's plan. He burned their tents right in front of the apes. Then, everyone rode their horses swiftly across the river. At this point, Thade received intel from the front line. He heard the astronaut had fled to the forbidden zone with the girl he desired. Thade instantly flew into a rage. He ordered all his troops to assemble. They were to follow him immediately to the forbidden zone to crush the astronaut. Meanwhile, the astronaut led everyone onward toward the mothership. Unexpectedly, the mothership before them was a complete wreck. He couldn't believe his eyes. But the locator showed that this wreckage was indeed his mothership. He went inside, taking in his surroundings. The next second, he realized this truly was his mothership. The skeleton he saw belonged to his crewmate, dead for who knows how long. But he had only left the mothership a short time ago. Why had it ended up like this? The astronaut was filled with questions. To find the truth, he quickly opened the control room door with his palm print. Once inside, he found the equipment was still functional. To understand what happened after he left, he quickly accessed the ship's database. After wiping the dust from the display screen, he first saw the distress video from right after he had departed. He then looked through other video logs. Finally, the whole truth came to light. It turned out, after the astronaut lost contact in the eye of the storm, his crewmates piloted the mothership in after him to save him. They also encountered the temporal vortex. The mothership then arrived on this same unknown planet. However, in a twist of fate, the astronaut arrived on the planet thousands of years in the future, while the mothership had traveled thousands of years into the past. Not only that, they discovered that genetically modified apes were becoming more and more human-like. Finally, one day, an ape named Simos began to lead the others in a rebellion. Because the apes were so numerous, the humans were ultimately defeated. Only a small number of humans escaped. From then on, they lived a life of constant hiding and fleeing, and have been enslaved as livestock by the apes to this day. At this point, knowing the full story, the astronaut was filled with remorse. If not for his recklessness, the mothership would not have met this fate. He had completely lost his will to fight. He felt he was just an idiot who had doomed everyone. He walked out of the mothership dejected. But at some point, all the humans on the planet had gathered there. Ever since they heard of the astronaut's heroic deeds against the apes, they had all come to follow him. Because no one wanted to be a slave forever. But the astronaut believed they had nothing and could never defeat the apes. However, when he told everyone to leave and hide, he found that the crowd remained in place, unmoving. Looking at the hopeful eyes of the crowd, the astronaut's resolve began to waver. Beside him, Ari saw the astronauts' conflict. She decided to try and persuade Thade to stop oppressing the humans. So she went to Thade's military camp to try and convince him. But Thade was furious when he heard this. He was on the verge of ruling the entire world, yet Ari continued to defy him. Unable to tolerate it any longer, he branded Ari with the mark of a slave. Then he ordered her to be sent away. The astronaut was still wondering what he should do. When he saw the brand on Ari's hand, he understood that he was the one who had brought this upon her. Just then, the astronaut inadvertently discovered the mothership's remaining fuel reserves. Perhaps this energy could be of great use. With a plan in mind, he quickly gathered all the humans. After deploying his plan, everyone immediately took action. The next day, Thade had already led his great army to their location. On the astronaut's side, after arranging his people, the first wave of fighters rode to the front to lure the enemy. Seeing their arrogance, Thade immediately ordered an attack. Seeing the enemy taking the bait, the astronaut quickly called his men back. The ape army thought the humans were terrified by their imposing might. But the next second, the astronaut had just unleashed a massive surprise. Although the mothership's energy was only enough for one blast. Then, the astronaut yelled for everyone to come out and finish the job. He thought Thade would be too scared to attack again, but he didn't expect that the reckless brute knew no fear. The humans now began their battle with the apes. They unleashed all their long-suppressed resentment. As the battle raged on, a bright light suddenly appeared in the sky. As the light grew closer, a closer look revealed it was a spacecraft. At that moment, everyone stood still, staring at the ship before them. Then, the ship's hatch opened. Unexpectedly, inside was the astronaut's ape, Pericles. At this sight, all the apes began to kneel before Pericles. According to legend, their god Semos would return to the world, so they mistook Pericles for their ancestor, Semos. Just then, seeing Pericles, the astronaut happily pulled him down. Everything seemed fine, but Pericles suddenly rushed into the mothership wreckage. Just as the astronaut was about to chase him, he was tackled to the ground by a charging Thade. The two immediately began to fight, but Thade's strength was too great. Seeing he was no match, the astronaut quickly pulled out his gun and fired. But Thade, the living target, was too quick to dodge. The astronaut didn't land a single shot, and instead Thade snatched the weapon from him. Moreover, it took him only 2.5 seconds to figure out how to use the pistol. As he raised the gun to finish off the astronaut unexpectedly sealed the cockpit door. Luckily, the glass was made in China. Thade fired at the glass several times to no effect. When he saw his subordinate outside, he ordered the ape to get him out. But his subordinate had long had enough of his oppression, so he decided to pretend he saw nothing. Afterward, the astronaut walked out of the mothership with Pericles. After entrusting Pericles to Ari, he decided to take Pericles' ship into the vortex to return to Earth. After all, people he cared about were waiting on Earth. He believed after this ordeal, humans and apes could probably live in harmony. So, with his mission accomplished, he resolutely entered the eye of the storm. Unsurprisingly, he once again encountered the temporal vortex. After passing through it, he finally saw the Earth he had longed for. But upon landing, the ship once again lost control and crashed. When he climbed out of the spacecraft, he found himself at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington. He cautiously walked inside, only to find the Lincoln statue had been replaced by an ape. He was completely bewildered when he read the inscription on the wall. Somehow, the great general and emancipator was now Thade. He was still wondering how Earth had become like this, when suddenly, a large number of ape police officers surrounded him. Perhaps the astronaut had been transported to yet another unknown time. And here, the film ends. This movie is certainly very old, but the plot is still quite exciting. The overall pacing is also quite thrilling and tense. Even though apes ruled the Earth, they couldn't escape the framework of human society. They still carried the shadow of humanity. This is perhaps a concept that modern films can't quite capture. No matter what animal rules the world, the law of the universe is the law of the jungle. But the ideas here are, in the end, just ideas. After all, compared to other animals on Earth, humanity's technological development is just too formidable. Perhaps on Earth, humans will always be the masters. Alright, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed my video, please subscribe to my channel. Your support is my greatest encouragement.